Troy, are we ready to go? Are we live?
One moment, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
We are live and recording now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, ready to go? Abe?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
And Laura, you ready?
I am, thank you.
Okay. Hey, everybody, welcome to the 2 p.m. August 5th Board of County Commissioners work session. Just want to make a couple of comments before we begin this. This is not a business meeting. This is not a land use meeting. This is not any of the other meetings that we usually conduct here in the hearing room. I have not yet touched the gavel to gavel this into session. This is one of the 3 meetings required under state law every week for the Board of County Commissioners, and we call this a work session. Inherently, this is usually a meeting between the commissioners that the public is allowed entry to and allowed to observe. However, this is not one of our normal business meetings. I must caution that order will be held, and we expect a professional demeanor from all in attendance. Otherwise, guys, I will clear this room and leave the commissioners to consider this through the means of observation that we have. We are on WebEx. A recording will be preserved of this meeting. So I do ask everyone to please work with the commissioners as we consider this option before us. I do see many signs in the audience. I know the great American tradition is to wave your sign proudly so that all may see it. May I please ask you to keep those signs below your head level? We are broadcasting this on WebEx. I assure you, you have neighbors who want to see what's going on. They want to hear what's going on. Okay, so please do not raise the signs above your head. I can assure you for all, I think I can read every single sign as it is displayed right now. And again, this is a work session for the commissioners. And so, without further ado, let us begin. Topic today is the Wildcat Regional Park Recreation Center option and consideration of a feasibility study. And who do we have presenting on staff?
Mr. Chair, Terrence Quinn for staff. I'll start and I'll pass it off to Nick and potentially Luke also, sir, as we move through this. The Board of County Commissioners asked us to put together a very defined, focused work session on the request for a feasibility study for the recreation center at Wildcat. This is a very multifaceted project. It's very complicated, and staff believes that is beyond our ability to put a good cost estimate to it. So we were hoping to get some support from the board to do a feasibility study and discover what the costs and what the implications of putting a very large recreation center at Wildcat would be. We're going to go over a little background with you today, commissioners. We'll also work a little bit on some of the elements that we're going to include in the feasibility study, and also some of the interests. We'll go over some of the user groups that have been interested in doing some things at the Wildcat Regional Park. So with that, I would go ahead and turn it over to Nick.
Terrence, before you do that, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, just if I could insert a point of personal privilege.
Go ahead, Abe.
Yeah. So Terrence, I appreciate that initial introductory comment as our Director of Community Development. I just want to clarify that at no time did the full Board of County Commissioners provide any direction to staff about a feasibility study around Wildcat Regional Park. That was not something that I ever voted on or directed. I don't believe Commissioner Teal did either. And so I just want to make that very clear, certainly for those that are in attendance today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Abe. Go ahead, TQ. Please continue.
If I could add that What we initially did back in 2022 was begin a bit of outreach, that we did a scope of work with the Board of County Commissioners at that point. And what Commissioner Layden is saying is that we never asked the Board of County Commissioners for a feasibility study for anything that was going on, but we did go out and work to gain input from jurisdictions and from user groups on what could go into Wildcat. And I know that was a while ago. And we also had work done with Mickey Clark on working on our vision and our strategic master plan. But the feasibility study came up, sirs and madam, when it was so complicated, it was beyond our ability to do the estimates. And so that's the reason why we put together the request for the feasibility study.
All right. Thank you, Terrence.
Yes,
Please
yes.
continue.
Sure, if you want.
Okay, so a little bit of summary. Staff is prepared to discuss. Nick Gioke, I'm the Parks Program Manager. Staff is prepared to discuss a $250,000 funding request for the Wildcat Regional Park Recreation Center feasibility study with the Board of County Commissioners. Based on the information provided, the board may fund the request that the Parks Advisory Board review it further, table it for further consideration, or reject the request. The 202-acre parcel of land identified as Wildcat Regional Park property was dedicated to the county as part of the Wildcat Region Park Agreement between Mission Viejo Company, Highlands Ranch Community Association, and the county. The parcel is located between Griggs Road and Monarch Boulevard, just south of the Hearth neighborhood in Highlands Ranch. As part of this agreement, the property was identified as a location for expansion of Highlands Heritage Regional Park. This agreement also allows for non-urban related uses as defined in the Highlands Ranch Developmental Guide and the Highlands Ranch Open Space Conservation Plan. After passage of the Parks, Trails, Historic Resources, and Open Space Sales Tax in 2002, the county received inquiries from various user groups and local governments to partner on funding, planning, and acquiring of land for parks. Each request was brought to the PAB, Parks Advisory Board, for review and recommendation to the board for final funding decisions. The large number of inquiries and new Parks Advisory Board members has provided an opportunity to amend this review process. Now, all requests and inquiries will be provided to the board to garner direction prior to PAB review. Staff will manage the request as directed by the board, which may include a PAB review and recommendation for the board's consideration. This new process ensures the board is informed of all requests and that each align with the board's priorities prior to the review by the PAB. This particular request, this study would include an array of interest for indoor and outdoor sports fields, an indoor swimming pool, and trails. The large scale of the sports complex requires an understanding of the design, costs associated with construction, and overall impact. After discussion with the design and construction contractor, the amount of up to $250,000 would cover all elements of the study. These include, but are not limited to, wildlife, environmental, historic resources, light and noise impact studies, site design and facility suitability, grading, drainage, traffic, access improvements, road improvements, both internal and external to the site, and utilities. The complexity of this plan includes interest in partnerships from a wide variety of recreational uses. User groups have inquired about creating fields for soccer, football, and baseball. Also, there's a potential partnership and interest in indoor sports fields and an Olympic-sized pool. Partners that are interested include Colorado Aquatics, Mile High Sportsplex, Real Colorado Arapahoe Youth League for football and also for baseball, in Slammers baseball. Next step, staff is prepared to discuss this further with the board.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask a question. I just had a citizen text me that they want to listen remotely, but there's no code available. Is there anyone else online besides Commissioner Layden?
Troy, what's our public participation on the WebEx? Is it view only?
It is view only, and I have 26 attendees.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, please carry on.
We're at a point that's the plan. We're just looking for input from the board.
Okay, do we have a layout of the proposed plan? Because all I'm seeing right now is this image in the packet, but I seem to recall seeing at a prior meeting a more detailed layout of a proposed site improvement plan.
I'll take that question. Terrence Quinn for staff. The request that the schematic that you were looking at was what we had worked on when Commissioner Thomas had indicated she wanted to make Wildcat one of her priorities. So that schematic that you saw is actually what led us to believe that there was no way we were going to be able to put a design and a cost estimate together based on all the interests that were coming in. So that isn't really part of this request. This request would help us get that schematic put together so we can understand all the facets that Nick went through.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the board for staff at this time?
I don't have questions for staff, but I would like to clarify some statements that have been made. So this was the first time that the commissioners had worked through a process with the contractor, and the contractor, Mickey Clark, met with each one of us and asked, what are your priorities? And it was interesting that about the same time, I had had several people reach out to me saying, we really need more things for kids. And we are a nonprofit. We have the ability to bring an Olympic pool to Douglas County. Right now, if you want to practice an Olympic pool, you either have to drive to Thornton or to Colorado Springs. And we actually have an Olympic pool, and we ran one in Ohio for 8 years. But we can't find any land. And so I met with staff and I just said, first of all, how can we help these people that want to build pools and activities for our kids? And that's when staff reminded us that the county owns 202 acres known as Wildcat Regional Park that is an extension of Highlands Heritage Park. So as a developer is building homes, statutorily they are required to set aside land for parks. And that's what that mustard, about a rectangle up there is land that was provided by statute for parks. And at the same time, we were working with Mickey Clark, and that's when I explained to Mickey that this was one of a potential opportunity to provide fields and opportunities for kids. We had had a meeting here, the commissioners had had a meeting to talk about earlier developing the fairgrounds with the master plan. And we had a room full of people saying, we need more parks for kids. We need more fields. So all of this came together as a constituent need, and that's how this started, working with Mickey Clark. I believe Commissioner Teal, you worked with Mickey, and Commissioner Layden worked with Mickey to identify priorities that were then brought forward. Something like this, Wildcat Regional Park, is like a 100-step process. And we are only on step 3. There are so many different components that need to be considered. And in working with staff is when I learned that a feasibility study would be the way to determine the best way to use these 202 acres that Douglas County owns. Now around it in this map, you can see there are 12,600 acres that are set aside as open space. The yellow is 8,200 acres that was given by the developer, Shea, to the Highlands Ranch Community Association. That is permanent open space. The blue space there is Daniels Park, which is owned by the city and county of Denver. That's 1,000 acres, permanently set aside as open space, never to be developed. And then the big red square below at the bottom is Cherokee Ranch and Castle, which is 3,400 acres, permanently proposed as open space. So the definitions here are open space, which are the yellow, the blue, and the red. And then the mustard space rectangle at the top is not open space. It is parkland that was dedicated to Douglas County. So that's how all of this came about. Constituents coming to me and asking for these opportunities. I have no personal involvement in this. I don't have kids that play there. This isn't personal to me. This is work that came to me from constituents saying, we need these opportunities for kids. And that's why it's a good opportunity to hear from all of you. I'd also like to say that just before the commissioners came to this meeting, we had a work session where we are putting together a poll that is going to go into the field, into the county, probably around August 22nd, that has a list of all sorts of questions, asking the community, what are the things that you want to see in Douglas County on how the open space tax that was just approved in 2022 as a re-extension should be spent. It's about $350 million over 15 years. So I think collecting all this information from you, waiting to see what that study says, that scientific poll that we're hiring to be done on August 22nd, also tells us about what people want their tax dollars spent for. So I just wanted to give a little context about how I started working with Mickey Clark, as the other two commissioners were working with Mickey on opportunities for the sales tax dollars, and how staff had gotten involved in it. So thank you for that opportunity.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Layden, questions for staff or comments, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you to everyone that is joining us today. And praise to you, Commissioner Teal, for wanting to engage directly with citizens that may have concerns. I do think it's important to step back and look at the why in terms of why we are here today and what this conversation is about. I think for years, you've heard me say, and I think many of you would agree, that the challenge in 2024 with communications can often be misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. So when information gets out that is incorrect and then that misinformation is spread, it creates a real challenge in terms of clarity. But I think for today's purposes, we are intending to clarify what could be misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation concisely. And again, I have not voted or made any decision with regard to this concept, with regard to a feasibility study, or anything associated with this project. What I have asked our board to do after several years of trying to get this parks and open space ballot measure successfully passed was to develop a process so that we could have a strategic master plan for the investment strategy. I'm in my 6th year as a county commissioner, and for years we've had presentations to our board of a what. This is a project that makes sense. It's a shed in Larkspur. It's historic. How about a couple $1 million to restore this site? And that's just a hypothetical, but oftentimes we said, sounds like a great project, thumbs up. The challenge with that process is that it leaves out, it's the who, what, when, where, why, not just the what. And so all these projects are great. They all can be wonderful in some respects, but we have to think about opportunity cost. What are we not funding when we spend $5 million on a shed in Larkspur or in another project that may not have the right benefit? So again, I'm appreciative to the board for developing a strategic master plan. We are also doing town halls. We are also doing, to Commissioner Thomas's point, a survey We are providing our newly seated Parks Board, and keep in mind, we have brand new members that were just seated within this last month, specific criteria, including how much economic revenue could be generated, the impact to surrounding communities. So they have new criteria that is much more reflective of your concerns and ours, frankly. So this process is so important. And again, when information is spread that, commissioners are going to fund a study and build this park, nothing could be farther from the truth. Now, what is true is we did have a town hall where we talked about each commissioner's concepts and ideas around things they'd like to fund. I saw the rendering for this particular park for the first time at that town hall. And actually, I'd had several meetings with Slammers Baseball and other youth sports organizations, and it had been suggested to me that the area behind Rock Canyon might be a good location. So I was surprised to see the rendering, and I immediately told Commissioner Thomas, I said, I would really like to work with you and work with the county on opportunities for a sports village or sports complex, and let's get some more input on this. Let's explore this. I am not in a position today to make any sort of decision. We need to walk through that. We need to have that process, that strategic plan approved. We need to have that survey back. We need to have the board, the Parks Advisory Board, score any sort of what that we get, and we need to get that information back. So all that to say, I would invite everyone here, please provide us your comments, your thoughts, your concerns. I thank you all for attending. It'll be great to hear your thoughts today. I think I can predict where you're going to be. My sneak preview for you all is I'm a yes on a sports village. And I think we need to have a best-in-class sports facility for young people in our community, because we currently have zero. That could actually host a really significant national tournament like they do in Georgia and Florida. And we got a lot of young people here. But we also have $330 million for parks, open space, and historic resources. So there's enough in there for everyone. But I think through the process, we'll be able to identify those priorities that make the most sense for everybody without impinging on communities or doing things that a community doesn't want. One of the most important decisions we make is around willing communities. And so we need to have willing communities that want some of these concepts to flourish. So I just want to share that. And then I think the comment for staff that's really important is we talked about commissioner-directed priorities. And I think we may have gotten off on the wrong foot with thinking that that was a single commissioner's priorities. And so I think there was a lot of staff time dedicated to one commissioner's concepts and thoughts and conversations. And I don't fault, Commissioner Thomas or staff for doing that. But I take responsibility for not providing additional clarity that when we said commissioner-directed priorities, my intent was board-directed priorities. So the board has not directed or approved any sort of staff work associated with Wildcat Regional Park, but we did raise some other concepts. Sterling Ranch, I know Park in Lone Tree, Cherokee, smaller pocket parks up north that I believed our board supported. So in that respect, I think it was appropriate for staff to look into those. But anyway, I just wanted to provide that clarity. Mr. Chair, thank you for that time.
Hey, thanks, Abe. Terrence, I got some questions.
Sure.
All right. So, I'm looking at the graphic in the packet, and it's the graphic that's up on the big screen here. Do we have did we run into a graphic creation problem here? Because it looks to me like when I'm looking at the packet here, the proposed park here at Wildcat Regional Park, it seems to be surrounded on all sides by the HRCA backcountry. Do we just have a graphic error in creating this, or is it good graphics and it's accurate?
I think you have a good eye, sir. It is surrounded.
So
No graphic error.
Okay, so I'm seeing a gap on the eastern side between Monarch and the regional park.
You are,
And-
sir.
I don't see a gap, though, on the west side at Griggs.
There is, and I don't believe Griggs is shown on there, but there is a gap there.
Okay.
Very similar, very similar.
Okay, so no matter what, in order to get access to Wildcat Regional Park, we do need to transect HRCA backcountry, even if it's merely 50 feet, 100 feet, quarter mile.
It is true, we do have to transect.
Okay. Okay. That's usually a problem when we have businesses in here to do a site improvement plan when they have to cross other property owners' property in order for us to access. How do we usually, can you explain how we usually take care of that?
Yeah, it's a cross-access agreement. It's something where all property owners would agree to the access points.
Okay. I would like to then hear, I think we have a representative from HRCA here. Monica, I see you. Tell you what, Monica, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to hear ideas from HRCA pertaining to this proposal, but also any other plans that HRCA may have. And of course, Monica, you are not a stranger to the board, but please, for the sake of all of our neighbors present, let us know your name and who you represent.
So I am the president of the Highlands Ranch Community Association, Monica Wasden, and Leo Stegman, my fellow board member, is here as well as quite a few delegates in the audience from our district. So in June, we presented a proposal to the county on what we envision for that park, which is conservation, outdoor education, passive recreation. This comes up every couple of years. There's discussion. There's lots of people frustrated and up in arms, and then it goes away and it comes back. And so this time, because we know you have money to build this park, we really wanted to get in front of this, and unfortunately that didn't happen. But we do have a proposal. We would request that you don't fund the feasibility study right now. We would invite you to come up onto our property that oversees the entire parcel of land that you are talking about. I mean, there are major gulches and topography issues that are not conducive for ball fields. So we would invite all of the commissioners to come out and please take a look at the property, because I think once you see it, I mean, it looks level when you're looking from Griggs or you're looking from Monarch, you're looking across, but that's not really how it is. So we would request that you don't fund the feasibility study, that you allow our proposal to go through your process, and that we create a partnership. I think this could be a one-of-a-kind, amazing regional park, and I get that there's lots of open space around that park, but it's not accessible. This would be accessible to the whole county. This would be a partnership where we would fund the trails, we would fund the regular maintenance of it, and we would ask for your help through a different fund, not the Parks Fund, to help us with the infrastructure, because we know those costs could be significant. I do have permission today from the representatives of Sterling Ranch. Because this all came about, it's given me an opportunity to speak to all of our community partners in Lone Tree and Parker and Castle Pines. And they all support our plan for that land. But to take it a step further, Sterling Ranch has 200 acres of land off of Santa Fe that they are willing to have a discussion with the Slammers and all the other sports groups that need a state-of-the-art ball facility or sports facility that Abe is talking about, that you're all talking about. They're willing to talk to you guys and to talk to these groups about putting that state-of-the-art facility on that piece of land. We could create a win-win here. If you would go out and you would meet with them and look at that parcel of land, and then meet with us and look at our parcel of land, I think we can find a solution that's going to benefit all the residents of Highlands Ranch. So that's where I'm at. Sorry. So
Hang on, guys. It's not a Trump rally in here. Come on now. This is a work session. Hey, Monica, would you mind asking a couple questions? I know I've got a couple
Absolutely.
questions. Before I ask mine, I'd like to turn any questions or comments over to my colleagues. Commissioner Thomas, any questions?
I do have some questions, but I'm wondering if it would be better to get more information from everyone involved and proceed there that way. So that's what I would prefer to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Layden, any questions for Ms. Wasden?
Well, you're correct. Ms. Wasden is no stranger to this board, and I just want to take this time to specifically express my gratitude for your longtime leadership in Highlands Ranch and for all of the things you've done for not just years, but decades for our community. We really have a great community up in the Northwest, in large part because of your active role. I would just say I'm in the same boat of we need to follow the process. So, you know, I'd be open today with our Board of County Commissioners, including as a Board of Commissioners directed priority, a sports village. And then providing that information to our staff and the Parks Advisory Board to focus on the major question, which is location, location, location. And again, I think we need to get the citizen survey back from all citizens we represent. It's a nearly 400,000 person community, and that scientific survey is going to be very instructive to me because I want to hear from everybody. But again, I think it's really helpful, and I want to also extend my gratitude to a great partner in Sterling Ranch, who has always been very nimble and willing to work well with the county. So thank you for that opportunity. I am one of those as just one decision maker that likes to see all of the options, consider all of the costs, really weigh them against what we might not be funding, and just try to provide the greatest good for the greatest number. So I'll just say to Ms. Wasden, thank you. I am very enthusiastic about, I think, the strategy and the thought that you have around this. But of course, to your point, would like to see it go through our process.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Monica, so a couple of questions that I have for you. I mean, thank you for filling us in on the plan that you guys have been working on at HRCA. You're talking about more passive use. What would be the inherent, I mean, would you be asking the county to manage that, concept for this regional park on behalf of HRCA? Or do you envision us transferring title?
We would love it if you would transfer title, help us. We would maintain it as a regional park, so it wouldn't just be one of our normal parks, which are just for Highlands Ranch residents. We would honor the intent of that land. We have set aside $450,000 right now to be able to build the trails, some benches. I mean, it would be very passive, but it would be an opportunity where we would build a 5K trail that the schools could come in and have cross-country track meets. People in wheelchairs, or you could come and it would be a packed surface so that wheelchairs could be on it and they could enjoy that open space, because like I said, while there is a lot of open space around it, there is not an opportunity to go out into those areas, and so this would be a unique opportunity for the whole county. And it would be to the north, because most of your open space is to the south, just saying, George, Commissioner Teal.
It is true, I am a resident of the town of Castle Rock. But I assure everybody, we work for everybody here. We all get elected at large. Okay, well, Monica, so give me an idea. You heard my question to Terrence about access. If we were to decide, no, we want to do this as a county programmed park, we would need to come to HRCA to request access, to work on an access agreement. I don't know. I mean, understanding, of course, there's a lot of emotions on this topic right now. Is that still something that could be worked out? Does HRCA have a process that we could partner up with you guys and work on together?
That would require a vote of the whole board, and we haven't taken that vote. We actually haven't discussed it. We want to be good partners. To what extent, I don't know. I would say, we want to be good partners. We'll have to figure that out.
Okay, well, this is a work session. We're allowed to tell each
Not all of
other.
my board is here.
Yeah, we're allowed to say bad news to each other in a work session. This isn't a business meeting. It's not
Well,
the
if it
big
was my
show.
vote, I'd say no. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. All right, thank you. I think those might be the questions, very specific, I had for you.
Okay.
Turning back to the board, Commissioner Thomas, any questions before we let Monica go?
I will clarify. I do have another question. So Monica, I had been talking with Mike Bailey about this process for 6 months, and one of the offers that we had talked about is the zoning violation for the boot camp that you have off Highway 85. And when Mike and I had been talking, the offer included moving those activities that are currently under a 2-year zoning violation that neighbors above it are complaining about, that I hear from regularly, to move that operation onto just the edge of Griggs. This is the area that the county cleared for the debris after the tornado last year. So there's road base there so that we could partner with you to move those activities into an area where there would not be a zoning violation. So will these be considered in your offer that you are making today? So those neighbors that are dealing with the zoning violation can have that zoning violation cleared up?
Well, I will say that while there may be a zoning violation in your guys' mind, based on our documents, the OSCA documents, we don't believe there is a violation. However, we have complied in every aspect of requests from staff. We have changed times for our programs. We have stopped our movies in the backcountry. So we have made a lot of concessions to satisfy staff and those residents. I can't say for sure that we would move our base camp. We have a pretty established program out there. It accesses straight into wooded areas, which is the whole point of that outdoor education back there. But that's not to say it wouldn't, if we did something, it would be down the road. It would not be in the regional park because it's the location that you're talking about off of Griggs is too far for a lot of our younger kids to walk to get to the real backcountry where the trees and the elk dung and everything else is. So if we did something down the road, it would probably be at the bottom of the park on our planning area, and we have our own process we would go through for the county or for the residents of Highlands Ranch to have input on what we would consider. But right now, we're focused on just that park in resolving this issue. We consider base camp to be a separate issue.
Okay, thank you. I think there might be some people here who want to address that boot camp as well, so thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
I think this brings up a good point. And, I'm a 20-year resident of Douglas County and raised my 3 children in Highlands Ranch before moving to Lone Tree. I'm always so amazed by how many citizens Highlands Ranch Community Association serves. Monica, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you happen to have that number?
It's over 120,000 now, a little bit more.
Yeah. And in terms of the number of citizens that avail themselves of your recreational facilities, is that around the same number or is it more?
It's around the same number, but of residents, but we do offer our programming for people outside. I believe your son was at one of our rec centers last week playing basketball. So we do provide opportunities for through programming for other areas of the county to come in and use our facilities.
Yeah. Well, we work very closely with SCFD, which is the scientific cultural organization that provides funding for a lot of community activities. And the numbers that you serve are just staggering. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of nonprofits where, they might serve 50 to 100 Douglas County citizens at any given time. And it's staggering what you're doing. So I just want to clarify that I hope that you don't get any sense from the full board that there's any direction to address a zoning I haven't heard that this is a zoning violation that does need to come in compliance. I know that there are a few people that are not pleased with what's happening in backcountry, but again, I always have to focus on the greatest good for the greatest number. And my vote and concern would be with the 100,000 that you're serving, not those that are raising issues with our board. So just to be clear, I'm not having private conversations with Mike Bailey about this or directing him that he needs to horse trade with us.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no further questions for you, Monica, and I know you have a very important constituent that you brought with you today who seems to be a little demanding.
Crying yet, so.
All right. Hey, thank you,
you.
Monica, for joining
you.
us and sharing the plans of HRCA. I want to hear about some of the user groups that are called out, though, in the staff packet. I noticed I already caught Mark Holtzmer's eye. He's with Slammers Baseball, and Slammers have already been mentioned. Mark, would you like to come forward and tell us a little bit what your ideas were with Slammers' use of this property and how it fits into your future plans, please?
Thank you. My name is Mark Holzmer. I'm the president of Slammers Baseball. I'm a Colorado native. Lived in Highlands Ranch for 22 years. Being in the baseball academy business throughout the state, I've gone all over the state. I raised my son. He played baseball all the way through high school. We had to travel all over. We had to travel to Fort Collins, Aurora, and there was no place in Highlands Ranch where they had fields where they had tournaments. So our teams play tournament baseball. So really a lot of travel on the weekends. So there's a need for fields. And with the group that, their shirts and the website, I appreciate it, I really do. It says, right idea, wrong place. What has come out about all this, from what I've seen, is that there is a need for fields in Highlands Ranch. What I've done, I wasn't able to go to the previous two meetings because I was out of state traveling with my high school team. So what we do is we go out of state all over the country because there's no big tournaments here in the state of Colorado because there's no complexes. I understand the issue that people are bringing up with this proposed site, but we do need complexes here in the state of Colorado. Like I said, what I do is I'm out of the state a lot with our guys, trying to get our guys recruited to go to play high school. From a youth standpoint, every weekend for our parents to drive a long ways away, 45 minutes to an hour. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it really taxes on the families on the weekend. So we need to find a place in Highlands Ranch, or I should say Douglas County. I've been fortunate enough to work with the guys at the Douglas County Parks and Rec. They've been awesome. I've met with the county commissioners. They've been great. If this is not the place, then we need to try and work together and find a place that is. And if Sterling Ranch is open, there's some other opportunities, but that's what we're here to do. We've been actively trying to find land for probably over 10 years, and we just have not been able to find the right place. And so to build a complex, to bring in the tax dollars and the revenue that a complex would bring in, I think it's something we absolutely need to look forward and work to.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Questions for Mr. Holtzmer?
I don't have any.
Abe, any questions for Slammers Baseball?
Well, I do, and I really appreciate that input. I mean, one thing that became abundantly clear to me, and I think many others, is that youth sports is a $37.8 billion industry with a B nationally, and it is unbelievable in my mind that we, as a county, have not had a greater investment in that type of facility. To have zero is just, I'm very surprised by that. But we do have a lot of open space and a lot of historic investment in open space, primarily in Castle Rock and south of Castle Rock, which is wonderful. But I do believe that my district and Commissioner Thomas's district, Highlands Ranch, and mine is Lone Tree and Parker, There's a lot of density there, a lot of young people, and an opportunity to do something really significant and iconic, which, by the way, could be revenue generating. And it's not a could, it will be. We know from City of Lone Tree that their completion of High Note Park will result in about $50 million coming back into our community. So that is not a small number. And when parents have to stay at a hotel, eat somewhere in the county, maybe shop at Park Meadows or whatever they do, that's all sales tax revenue that comes right back to the county. And a complex like that could pay for itself if, to the citizens' point, if it's in the right location. So I agree with our citizens.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Mark, so, I appreciate you, pointing out the comments we've heard so much, and we see here reflected by folks here in the room right now of it's the right idea but the wrong location. Well, okay, so I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by this idea of building, a tournament sports complex that your club, other youth sports clubs here in the county could make use of. It sounds like there's a positive economic impact, but I'm going to put you on the spot, man. I'm going to ask you, can you describe kind of the ideal location? I mean, what's around it? Is it really ideal to have, several hundred acres of preserved wilderness around it, or do we need it in order to have an economic impact? Don't we need it by commercial retail? The Costco for people to go get the bottle of water between games kind of thing, the Applebee's for the teams to go and eat lunch at.
Yeah, the ideal location would not be next to the open space, and I understand that's one of the challenges with talking with the Douglas County Parks and Rec to try and figure out the best place to do this. The ideal place would be where there are places for the families to go eat, because if you're going to a youth baseball game, you're usually not going to one, you're going to two. You usually don't have back-to-back games. So in between, you're going to go somewhere where you can go eat, hang out. They usually don't just have one child, they have multiple children. So the idea of having somewhere where there's food or other places to hang around, to the extent to spend money, that would be the ideal place. And like I said, this location is beautiful. It is close to my house. It is great for me personally, if this is where this would go, but I don't see this right now with the opposition, that this is probably the ideal place. The ideal place would have Chick-fil-A, Red Robin, a lot of places around it for kids to eat. Better restaurants, nothing against Chick-fil-A, but, for the kids and the families to go hang out, because it's an all-day affair. So that's the issue where we're at right now. Like I said, when you drive an hour and a half to go to play a tournament in Fort Collins, and then you're there playing the games are an hour and a half to 2 hours long. You play two of those, a game in between, you're getting back at 8 o'clock at night. So it's a full day affair. You're spending that entire time away from your house. If we could have something here, it would draw people to the state. And I've been all over the country. This is what I do. I see complexes, I see what they do around them, and I see the amount of people that go spend money in the hotels and the places to eat. I think there's a great opportunity here.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I just had one, and I this is with your expertise, Mark, and candidly, I think this is you're one of the conversations that I had that made me really interested in thinking about something for slammers in baseball. But if we go even bigger, best in class, iconic for all youth sports, indoor and outdoor, and year round, in your mind and based upon what you do every day, is it better to co-locate that in one location or to have dispersed locations throughout the county?
From what I've seen, when you have a larger sports complex, you generally have multiple sports that can handle, a wide variety of different ages and age groups with different, sports that are being played. For instance, in Georgia, they have soccer, basketball, they have an aquatics park across the street, they have hotels, and then they have an 8-field baseball complex. So most of the places that I go to that are bigger, Great Park in Irvine, California, it has everything. So they have soccer, they have baseball, they have softball, they have volleyball courts, they have indoor basketball. So you do get a lot of people coming to an area, and there's a ton of out-of-state people that fly into those events, like us. So to answer your question,
So
probably
the short answer is
more at once. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh no. So short answer is you would, based on your expertise, you would say co-located in one location.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Mark, I don't have any other questions. You took care of, thanks for answering my questions and the board's. You can have a seat if you'd like, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to hear from one of the user groups was Colorado Aquatics, Jared Brown. Is there anybody, Mr. Brown? Anybody from Colorado Aquatics want to come forward and answer any questions from the board? All right, I'm not seeing anybody. Mile High Sports Complex, Mile High Sportsplex, Chris Unruh. Chris? Anybody from Mile High Sportsplex would like to come forward?
Did you ask them to be here?
No, I merely thought we would schedule the discussion, and if they were interested in participating, they would find a way to be here.
Well, I didn't ask them to be here. I didn't know if you had. I didn't know that I thought in the work session last week, we talked about we weren't going to invite people here to talk about it, so that's why I didn't reach out to them. That's what I heard in the work session.
Well, listen, I think it's appropriate, though. I mean, we know there's a lot of community who's opposed to this plan. I think it is fair to hear from the users who were looking at this piece of land and saying, we think we can make an opportunity out of it. So I want to give them the opportunity. How about Real Colorado, Jared Spires? Real Colorado? Anybody here from Real Colorado would like to come forward? How about Arapahoe Youth League football, and this is for the Warriors Club, Kevin McAllister? Anybody like to come forward on behalf of the Warriors? Now that sounds like the way to start a party. Who wants to come forward on behalf of the Warriors? How about Arapahoe Youth League baseball, Raptors, Colin Caccione? And of course, Colin's a member of our Parks Advisory Board. I'm sure we're going to have an opportunity for him to weigh in on this. Those are the user groups that are noted in the staff memo who would be a part of this project. Okay, but we're not going to hear from them today. Board, we still have about just over an hour on the time allotted for this meeting. I'd like to pull the board in taking public comment. Now, folks, let me tell you, in our work sessions, we don't always take public comment. Again, it's meant to be staff and board working together. So before we ever introduce public comment, the board is polled, and they're allowed to decide whether they want to hear from the board, unlike our public meetings where we always try to integrate public comment. So Commissioner Thomas, yes, no to allow public comment?
I'm fine listening to public comment. I understand we have a hard stop at 4 o'clock for another meeting. Is that correct?
That is my understanding as well, Commissioner.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Layden, yes, no for public comment, please.
Yeah, I'm pleased to do public comment. I think when citizens take off part of their day to be with us, and it's an issue of significance to the county around large dollars, that we should absolutely take the time. So my thanks, and I'm open-minded and listening. I would add, if you hear somebody saying something that has already been said, I know our citizens are smart enough not to be repetitive or duplicative, but other than that, looking forward to hearing.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Can I ask, Commissioner, you had mentioned there are folks who would want to speak about the zoning violations that have been charged against HRCA. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on that, on the zoning violations out on, okay, I got one. And board, I would actually ask that we exclude that. That's not, I don't believe that's germane to this discussion. I'm happy to hear, ma'am, I'm happy to hear from you at a board meeting. Ladies, I'm happy to hear from you later at another board meeting if you'd like to come in and speak in public comment. But I don't consider it germane to the issue before us. Commissioner Thomas, your opinion.
I'd just like to ask the county attorney if we can regulate content when we open up citizen comment.
We can have people speak on the issue at hand, so we can have them speak directly to the parcel of land. If that's so. We do similar in business meetings where we have a open comment on an item, and there's only one item on this agenda today.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Commissioner, any further?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Layden, again, how do you feel about excluding folks who would like to speak out about zoning violations by HRCA that is not germane to this property?
My preference is that we stay focused on the issue that was posted.
Okay, thank you. Hey, ladies, please, we're going to have business meetings in the future. We will have open public comment. Please feel free to come in and speak at the time. But as Commissioner Thomas pointed out, we have limited time, relatively speaking. And so I ask you please be patient. Please come share your opinion in another time. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment on the proposed plan for Wildcat Regional Park? Ma'am?
Commissioner Keel?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Troy. My apologies for interrupting. You did call on a gentleman named Colin earlier. I can't remember what organization.
Mr. Cachone?
But yes, he is online. I just received a chat from him.
Oh, hey, let's hear from Mr. Cachone with Raptor Sports, and then we'll get to public comment since we do have assent to the board. But Troy, if you could
Colin is
unmute.
unmuted.
All right, Mr. Cachone, please carry on.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. Yeah, no, I just wanted you to know that I am online, and just wanted to speak kind of in the same vein that Mark talked about. The reason I'm not in the session there with you today is I'm actually on my way back from Kansas City, where I was just at a national level tournament in a similar vein to what Mark was talking about. We had to go to Kansas City because unfortunately that's where the parks are that can hold large tournaments. The tournament we were just at, 2,700 kids, over 270 teams. Those are the kinds of things that I think that we're looking at, and what Commissioner Layden was talking about having a sports village, one that could draw national interest like that. Just to give a little bit more background on that, there are a few different national level tournament providers that do provide tournaments in Colorado, one of them being USSSA, another one being Perfect Game, another one being Triple Crown. None of those realistically hold any of those national level invitationals anywhere in the South Denver area, especially in the Douglas County area, because we are very short on the supply of fields. Most of those will happen at places like the Aurora Sports Complex or the Erie Sports Complex. There are a couple that happen up in Steamboat and the Aspen areas because they have actually dedicated the land to having sports complexes where multiple youth can access those fields. As for the Wildcat Park, looking at it from not only the scope of being the director of Raptors baseball, but also the scope of being the vice president of the largest youth baseball league in Colorado, of the Arapahoe Youth League, that park and those fields would be integral to helping us grow our league. And that is a league in which I can tell you, our organization, the Castle Rock Raptors, we've had to turn away over 100 kids this past year just to play baseball because we don't have enough fields. The Highlands Ranch Warriors, they had to turn away kids this past year because, again, not enough fields to be able to meet the capacity demand they need for games and practices. And the Parker Hawks, they actually open their registration usually December 15th, and they are usually sold out to their capacity of their field allowance within 4 days. And they have hundreds of kids that have to go elsewhere trying to either latch on with us in Castle Rock or Highlands Ranch to be able to play. And again, the number one driving factor of what determines our capacities at our organizations is the number of fields that we have available to us. And so a proposal like Wildcat, I could see being very, very beneficial to multiple hundreds of families throughout our entire community, and not just the Highlands Ranch community, but the Castle Rock community, the Parker community, basically everybody that would want to play a youth sport such as baseball.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Colin, are you in a spot? Can you take questions from the board?
Sure.
Okay, questions from the board. Commissioner Thomas.
I'll let Commissioner Layden go first.
Commissioner Layden, questions for Mr. Cachone.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas and Chair. Mr. Cachone, thank you for your leadership and service. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked of Slammers, which is, do you think, in your experience and expertise, that it is better to have a co-located sports village or more dispersed parks throughout the county?
Again, to me, it depends on what your primary focus is for having those fields and having those parks. If your focus is to bring in national level tournaments, then absolutely you want to co-locate it all into one location, get as many people there. I mean, the park I was just at in Kansas City, they had 12 baseball fields. They had a hockey rink along with a recreation center right next door. And then you go less than a quarter mile down the road and there's another 12 more baseball fields. So they had everything located where they had hundreds upon hundreds of families playing there. The other thing that we have to look at, the other thing that I look at is, what's best for our community as Douglas County. And again, we have over 3,000 kids playing in AYL in Douglas County. And those fields, the parents have absolutely no problem driving amongst Parker or going to Highlands Ranch or going to Castle Rock to be able to play in those different areas. The other thing with that is the way that the high schools are set up, the way that middle school is set up. Middle school does not offer any type of feeder baseball programs to the high school. So they rely on people such as us at AYL and such as Market Slammers to be able to provide those kids into those feeders. And so we actually have divisionally set up our organization as AYL, so that way kids are feeding into their local high schools. So to me, being able to have multiple properties, one within the Highlands Ranch area or district, one within that Parker district, one within the Castle Rock district, would be much more suitable for the needs of the youth of the county. Now, if we're worried just about the national, the national level tournaments and bringing in that draw, then co-locate it. But if we're worrying about the actual residents who are paying the taxes in the county, then it needs to be dispersed.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I think you know far better than I in terms of all of this, but having 3 kids that went through youth sports, I mean, we truly traveled everywhere, and it didn't seem like it was often the big tournaments in Douglas County. I'm going to steal a line from Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams, and I would invite all citizens and hopefully our elected colleagues to dream along with me that if you build it, they will come. And my sense is this: if we are visionary enough to do something iconic and significant for our community, I truly believe that tax revenue, the hotels, the restaurants, the commercial, the retail will show up. And people will come from all over the country to participate in that and hopefully provide a net benefit to our community. So, but I hear what you're saying, that there may be a need for parks throughout our county to serve different purposes.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Thomas.
Well, I'll just clarify that, again, we're at step 3 of 100 steps looking at this process, this project, and it was never envisioned to be a grand tournament location. It was location in Highlands Ranch for kids to play baseball. I think maybe 3 fields is what was imagined. And just to clarify, this wasn't this big megaplex center, and we just heard Mr. Cachone talk about dispersed throughout the county, which was what, when I talked with staff after citizens came to me, is how this started. So I'd just like to clarify that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions for Mr. Cachone?
I have none. Thank you for being here and answering these questions. This is important because it points out that there are constituent needs for this. I've had people texting me that we have enough parks. We don't need this at all. So I think you add an important conversation, comments to this conversation, that we will get even more when we release the public survey the end of this month.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Colin, the good news is you've said here before this meeting a lot of things you've said to me before, and when you were answering my questions, so I have no further questions for you, sir, so I appreciate it. Turning to Troy. Troy, did we have any other user groups identified in the staff memo kind of message you and wish to make a comment?
I have no other user groups identified, sir.
Okay, thank you, Troy. Then let's go ahead and turn our attention to public comment. Ma'am, I saw your hand go up first earlier, so let's hear from you first. And folks, just because there's a lot of you who just raised your hand to speak, please come to the podium and start off with your name and tell us where you're from. We don't need addresses or anything like that, but just give us an idea where you're from. And then if we can, like to keep all individual comments to 3 minutes. And of course, to move it along, please join your neighbors up here who are kind of lining up at the podium to speak. So that we can kind of keep this going because we are under limited time. Ma'am, please.
Would
Yes,
you
my
mind,
name's
excuse
Sonia
me,
Carter.
spell their last name so that the person taking minutes can get that done right, please?
Absolutely. So give us your name. Please spell your last name and tell us where you're from.
Okay. My name is Sonia Carter, Carter. I live in Highlands Ranch. I actually live right next to the proposed space, so get a bird's eye view every single day of that very rolling, gully-filled area. I think it's important, and I appreciate your opportunity to speak, because there is a user group that is all the citizens who are not necessarily part of this sport or that sport. And I think that's an important group to consider as well. But what I heard today I found very exciting. I think as a taxpayer, I am certainly wide open to the notion of this sports village, or a place that will attract lots of folks and bring revenue to the county. However, as my sign says, it's all about location, location, location. And as I think it was Mark said, when you look at this land that is being proposed, what you have are 2 secondary roads that wander through neighborhoods. One of them on the Griggs is dirt road, and the other goes by the high school, and is frequented, particularly on weekends, which is when tournaments would happen, by lots and lots of bikers who don't have a way to get across there without driving down Monarch for a considerable place. So the notion of Highlands Ranch proposal that would provide trails and parks that might potentially connect Lone Tree and Highlands Ranch and on off to Jefferson County, I think is a great use of that space. And then it sounds like there might be a place for a larger sports complex. But it will be more than just, if you try to ram jam and basically take what is currently very, very undulous land and turn it into a pancake, it's going to cost a bloody fortune. And those are my tax dollars that are being spent for that. Whereas if there is another place like Sterling Ranch, like some of the land I saw as I drove down here, that is much flatter, has much better highway access, it seems to me that that we ought to be looking at where's the right place for each of these places. And in addition to considering the youth, and I played youth sports, my husband played youth sports, all of our children played youth sports, we traveled all over the country for youth sports, so we get that contingent. But there are also people like us who are now at a stage in their lives that having trails and quiet space and all is also important, and this allows, I think the thing being proposed by Highlands Ranch would potentially allow all the groups to be satisfied. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Very much appreciate it. I already told you guys it's not a Trump rally. Please keep the applause and ready comments down. Sir, please give us your name. Please spell your name for the record, and then just tell us where you're from.
My name is Mike Woodland, Woodland. I am a Colorado native. I've lived in Highlands Ranch for over 30 years. I grew up in Littleton. I've also volunteered a lot for Highlands Ranch. Been a district delegate for Highlands Ranch for over 25 years. I've also been a backcountry wilderness area trail patroller for well over, since the backcountry opened up, since its inception. So I've got a lot of background in Highlands Ranch. I'm very familiar with the area. I grew up in Littleton, went to Heritage High School, played a lot of baseball and soccer, but I had other aspects of my life which were equally as important. And that was that I valued that my parents got me out in nature. Always out hiking. I've climbed all the Colorado 14ers, coming up on a second round. I have a great appreciation for the outdoors and nature. This parcel of land, as you can see where it's located, is in a pristine area surrounded by conservation land, lots of wildlife. When these areas were being built out, the wildlife kind of migrated out. We used to see a lot of pronghorn. They're gone now, but we have seen a lot of elk and deer and other animals migrating back into these areas. Almost daily we see herds of them. 2 days ago I was out on the trails patrolling at dawn and I saw an entire herd of deer. Took some photos. I'd love to show them to you. But anyway, I wanted to share with you my experience about that, and also the fact that I value kids' sports. I was in sports, but I also value the outdoors, the wildlife, and I think that there is a long-lasting benefit of getting out in nature, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And maintaining passive recreation in a beautiful area like this that is accessible for all citizens of Douglas County is so important. And I believe it will serve a wide variety of Douglas County's citizens of all different ages, not just the youth, not just people playing sports, but all of the citizens that want to get out and enjoy nature. And so I am in support of preserving this area, putting in passive recreation, which I believe that all the generations prior to ours that maintained this land intended for it to maintain that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very much appreciate it. Ma'am, please give us your name. Please do spell your name for the record and tell us where you're from.
My name is Dr. Anne Marie Woodward. I've written several letters to each of the commissioners. I am an OBGYN who's been a physician since 1986. My name is spelled ANNEMARIEWOODWARD. I've been in Colorado since 1972, went to Arapahoe High School when there was no place in Highlands Ranch. I actually studied for medical school out in the wilderness of Highlands Ranch, watching the coyotes and the deer. This is my home. I love it. I have delivered babies in Colorado since 1980, actually at 84. And I started at Swedish Hospital where there was a lot of growth. And then our practice moved down to Littleton Hospital in Skyridge where there was a lot of growth. But There aren't as many babies being born, and OBGYNs follow the babies. There aren't as many babies being born in Highlands Ranch, so we moved down to Castle Rock. And that seems to be the growth of where the doctors go who are delivering babies. So my thought is, we already know that Highlands Ranch is an aging population. They're about my age, a lot of them, and we have less kids in school, with the thoughts of even sometimes closing some of the schools because we don't have enough. Castle Rock is a growing population, and with that growing population, that seems to be a better location for having sports camps. There may be other ones, but I know that, Laura, you had mentioned a month ago at your meeting that people don't really like to go south of Castle Rock for sports events. But I would propose that if there is something in Douglas County by Castle Rock where we already have restaurants and where we have available space, that people will come. Just as the gentleman said, if you build it, they will come. I also want to say that Highlands Ranch, according to the Water Board meeting that I went to a month ago, said that there's going to be no more new builds in Highlands Ranch, that starting in 2025. That 2025 is the last new build for homes. And so we know that Castle Rock has a lot of growing homes. And so I would propose that we would look at the land that we know is available south of Castle Rock and consider that rather than an area where we have an aging population who would love to use this land as a place to enjoy nature, as Mike has already addressed. Thank you very much for your time, and I gave you 30 seconds back.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it, ma'am. Come on forward. Please give us your name. Spell your last name for the record, and tell us where you're from.
My name is Lauren Nobles, and it's spelled Nobles, and I live in the Hearth. So my name is Lauren Nobles, and I'm a single mom. I bought my first home and my forever home in the Hearth last year, and we've had a pretty rough year for my family. I have a son who has some emotional problems this year, and we have had him in some pretty extensive therapy. After he had been with his therapist for a couple weeks, we kind of revisited some conversations, and he told me one of the reasons he loves our home is because he would sneak out at night and lie on our back deck and watch the stars and listen to the crickets. And his favorite nights were when the moonlight would actually hit the hills back behind the house, because it's a very hilly space. And that's where he found his peace. He's also a fisherman. He loves to fish in this little pond that what he can catch the most of is probably a bullfrog. There's nothing else really he can catch in that. But there's something about that motion of casting that makes him feel comfortable. So I want to speak to the fact that there are other children. As much as kids do need these spaces and do need these amenities, I was raised as a career soccer player. I had offers to play in college. I played club ball. I have another one who went through the Real circuit, and he's now with Rush. There are needs for this in our county. But I also want to point out the fact that there are children who also need spaces like this. Highlands Ranch itself was actually founded on the principles of conservation. It's now becoming part of the fabric of who we are as a community, and we have taught these kids to cherish and revere and care for these spaces that are behind their homes. Most of the Highlands Ranch community does support HRCA's proposal for a real regional park. I was lucky enough to be able to sit down with one of the original Mission Viejo execs who built the first home in Highlands Ranch, and we know that massive infrastructure of this size was never intended for this space. It was more to be a passive recreation, maybe a couple of fields. I just want to remind you that on June 27th, you guys said to us, what is the use of our open spaces if we do not allow our community to enjoy it? And I ask you, how do they enjoy it from the inside of an Olympic-sized swimming pool? How do they enjoy it when we grade and bulldoze all of the wildlife that exists there? Our community is saying to me, Lauren, we're terrified, we're scared, we are losing weight, we're heartsick, this doesn't make sense. You just have to realize there is already an immediate impact in the community that is surrounding this area. And if we continue forward and we don't support our HRCA proposal and we go ahead with the feasibility study, it's only going to get worse. And please consider the constituents that surround this area as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, come on forward. Give us your name. Please spell your last name for the record, and tell us where you're from.
Thank you. My name is Shama DeBose. My first name is spelled S-H-A-M-A. Last name is D-U-B-O-S-E. I'm a resident of Highlands Ranch in the Hearth specifically, so I prepared some comments. So I'm a mom in Highlands Ranch. I'm a mom of a sports kid. While we're here talking about the future of Wildcat Regional Park, I want to highlight some of the past commitments this county has made to its residents. In 2012, Douglas County Planning Commission adopted a 2040 comprehensive master plan. At the heart of it, the goal is to maintain harmony in land use between humans and Douglas County residents and animals. Speaking of wildlife, Section 9 of the master plan is dedicated wholly to wildlife, and it earmarks specific areas which are considered high habitat value and wildlife habitat conservation areas. The plan references a three-tiered system to prioritize habitat needs for wildlife. Tier 1, which is considered the highest level of importance, specifically names large blocks of lands such as HR Backcountry Wilderness Area and Daniels Park specifically. The site of the Wildcat Regional Park sits directly in or adjacent to both of these. The wildlife and topography of this area is a direct driver of the appeal of living in Douglas County and in Highlands Ranch for so many of us. Spaces like Wildcat Regional Park are invaluable and inimitable in that balance between humans and animals. Speaking of residents of Douglas County, within that same document, it projects that younger populations, those under 18 and those between 18 to 64, are actually shrinking within Douglas County, while residents of age 60 and over will more than double by the year 2030. We see it all around us every day. The population of Highlands Ranch is aging. When considering any type of development to vacant land, it's prudent that we weigh the needs of all citizens. This unique location has the potential to serve a much more diverse and inclusive population than solely youth sports. Our ask today is not to halt the search for sports fields in Douglas County. We see the need. The idea that there is a need for more sports fields and that we need to preserve the wildlife area like Wildcat Ridge are not mutually exclusive. What we ask is for the county to expand its search and consider other potential sites before spending $250,000 on a feasibility study. We believe that there is a better solution that meets the needs of the many rather than those of the few. Right idea, wrong location. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Sir, you are not a stranger to the board, but please do give us your name. I think we've met a couple times, council member. Please do give us your name. Tell us where you're from, sir.
I'm Roger Hudson. I'm a city councilman from Castle Pines, and my last name is spelled Hudson. I'm speaking as myself, as an elected member of City Council in Castle Pines. First of all, because I do know all three of you and have a personal relationship with you, I want to thank you for your continued commitment to parks, open spaces, and our trails here in Douglas County. I know that those are important to you. As I have worked with you in our city, you have helped fund them, you've helped expand them in our city, which I'm proud to say is something that we're expanding in Castle Pines. Parks, open spaces, extremely important to us. We're currently looking at dedicating a 90-acre park in our city where we're now doing exactly what you're doing. What's going to go in that park? So we're looking at pickleball courts, baseball fields, those kinds of things. So we're making the same kind of decisions you are. I will advocate for this open space. It butts up against my city. My residents go and enjoy it. They travel these trails. They go and enjoy the wildlife and the environment. They love this open space. I know I walk it as well with my dogs. Go onto social media. You'll see all the pictures that you're hearing people talk about. They're seeing herds of elk. They're seeing some of the little critters that are running around in that space that will disappear. And I know I've heard lots of talk about there's so much out there, but how long will it last? And we keep moving these herds. I worked with you, George, on the wildlife fence along the I-25 to save not only drivers but also wildlife that were crossing onto the road. Well, we're now boxing them in even farther. We need to give them a place to go. I mean, if I can say in closing, as I look out into the audience, I know you guys have too, and you see this field of green shirts on a Monday afternoon, and you got a full house here. I don't have this many come to my library in Castle Pines during a meeting. I don't look at this as opposition, as I kind of heard you all talk about. I look at it as advocacy. They're not opposing a sports complex. They're advocating for conservation They're advocating for wildlife. They're advocating for their community. I think this is what Douglas County is all about. These are the people that I like in my city that come to my meetings and say, we love our open space. We love our animals. We love living here in Douglas County. We love sports, but not in my backyard where it's going to cost us animals and herds and things we can't replace. I can replace a swimming pool and a baseball field. Obviously, we're doing it in Castle Rock. I can't replace a herd of elk. So I appreciate all that you do. I hope you will consider this in the 1,000 steps that you got ahead of you. Thanks.
All right, thank you, sir. Very much appreciate your comments. Ma'am, please, go ahead. Give us your name. Do tell us where you're from.
I'm Stephanie Jacks, Jacqueus, and I'm in the Firelight neighborhood. I moved to Colorado in 2016. I came from an area where they did build a big sports complex in Illinois. It changed a lot of the environment around there. It caused infrastructure issues, and the biggest thing that we had was light pollution. In Douglas County, we do have guidelines that have in place to make it a dark county, keep it a dark county. So what's going to be the solution to keeping a park like this a dark county situation, as well as what's the idea or the plan to rehome protected wildlife in the area? So it was just more questions and concerns, and that's all that I really have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Very much appreciate your comments. Sir, please come on forward. Give us your name. Tell us where you're from.
Hi, my name is Scott James, James. I've lived in Douglas County since 2007, and the Hearth specifically for over 10 years. I'm an attorney. I'm just here for myself today, and I think that we've heard a lot of interesting concepts. Commissioner Layden talked about process, and I think that that's particularly important. Process. Not putting the cart before the horse. I actually support site acquisition for a national data center operator, and I just imagine going in or having someone in my company go into their boss's office and say, I've done almost no diligence, I've selected a site for development, and before I can answer any questions about this, I need $250,000. That person is not going to have a job for very long. This parcel should not even be part of the discussion. Look at all the people here who don't want this development here. If you just synthesize what we've heard on this issue, we've heard people say we need more sports complexes. Not one of them has said it has to be this one. We've heard people say don't develop this space. Not one of them has said we don't like sports or we don't want sports fields. The fact that this has been the community pitted against each other is not even accurate. The community is all saying the same things. These are all the same message. This is not inconsistent at all. Both can be true. The county can accomplish both of them, and you don't need to spend $250,000 to realize this is a terrible location for maximizing the type of economic activity that we've heard. I played tournament sports myself growing up, traveled all over the country playing ice hockey. My family spent a lot of money going to these tournaments, and most of the places that probably had the most successful tournaments, in my experience, were close to a lot more commercial operations. Hotels, gas stations, restaurants. We heard all that today. And this place is close to nothing. It's close to residential houses. All it's going to do is disrupt the community. Please recommend against funding this proposal and start over, find an appropriate place to put this, and maximize the benefit to our community while avoiding the harm to our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Very much appreciate your comments. Ma'am, please tell us your name.
Hi.
Tell us where you're from.
My name's Amanda Von Grossa. I've lived in Vongrosse. I've lived in Wildcat Ridge for 24 years. And everything he said, I was going to, similarly, he was much better spoken than I am, but everything he said I agree with. But the biggest reason I came today, I attended the July 10th meeting of the Parks and Board group that met on July 10th, and it was my understanding that they listened to this proposal for $250,000, and they were supposed to rank it and then hand it over to you all for a vote today. And I was just so frustrated and appalled that somebody would come up with no information and ask for $250,000 for a study, and there's like 3 or 4 things that I can think of, and I'd do it for free. You can make one call to the National Wildlife Association. They protect that whole trail right across the street from the proposed area that you're looking to put a sports complex. We protect the golden eagles up there, or the Federal Wildlife Association does, and closes that trail for several months out of the year. So people can't hike or bike on that trail because it will disturb the eagles nesting. So I don't understand. This is what I would like to know from our county commissioners, is how it gets this far. How are you guys voting on $250,000 of our tax dollars to do a study on this location? The study needs to be on several locations. You also need to study if you need, I just heard questions today about one big park or a bunch of smaller parks. I've heard baseball fields, I've heard about football fields, soccer fields, Olympic-sized swimming pool. Maybe that's some of the misinformation that Ms. Thomas spoke about. But there's also information that's not misinformation that came from a newsletter that said the elk that live in that area, the pictures that we've seen are not of elk that go through or migrate through that area, and that's just not true. We have, Douglas County has a video out that shows the elk living in that area. So besides the eagles and the elk and the infrastructure, I'm just frustrated that it's even gotten this far. And that's why I'm speaking again today, and that's why I came. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Very much appreciate your comments. Sir, if you'd like to come forward, give us your name, tell us where you're from.
My name's Warren Streck. The last name is Streck. I live in the Hearth, and we face out into this space. It's the quietest place I know, only second to our large farm back in Missouri. And because we have a large farm back in Missouri, I can speak personally about the impact of large pieces of equipment, including tractors and graders, diesel equipment, and all the noise that comes along with investing in or affecting the land. But farm animals have relatively short lives, and it's part of the day, the noise. The elk, the eagles, the foxes, the coyotes aren't just going to move 200 acres away while we make this noise. They'll move farther. They'll move far enough that they don't hear the diesel trucks pulling in or the tractors grading the land or what is eventually cleaned up and turned into a park. They won't hear the Pepsi trucks pulling in, the Frito trucks pulling in, the air brakes releasing, the beeps when something backs up. They won't hear waste management at 5 in the morning dumping out with the dumpsters and slamming them down. They'll remove themselves from the environment, because I can tell you what happens when animal like deer and elk are exposed to things like large tractors and large trucks. And we haven't even talked about the animals we don't see, all the ones under the ground. Not a lot of people are prairie dog fans, but they're there. The rabbits, the snakes, all the burrowing animals, the things that are part of the ecosystem, the things that the rest of the ecosystem out there depends on being there. Circle of life and the whole food chain. It's a real thing. If you pave it over, they won't come. They'll leave, and they won't be back. They'll be a nuisance at first because they'll be out on the roads. In fact, our understanding is that Griggs can never be paved as part of some agreement in Douglas County because of the elk. That it has to stay gravel because elk won't walk over a paved road normally. They do, often at their fate, and often to the demise of a young driver. But our understanding is your gravel road that is constantly being graded and treated for dust will have to remain as is, and then still attempt to support an area where you've got the Frito-Lay truck coming, the Pepsi truck coming, the waste management trucks coming, and everybody else who's there to make money. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Ma'am, come on forward. Please give us your name. Tell us where you're from.
Hi, I'm Kim Carroll, Carroll, and 25 years retired emergency services, recently retired, still trying to figure it out. 20 years in Highlands Ranch, now in the Hearth. I have to say that I'm probably going to be a little redundant here because our son, traveled 10 years competitive hockey at the top level across the entire country, including Canada. With that experience, we do not want a sports complex. We do not want what you're calling a sports village in our backyard. I have it on both sides. I've traveled to them, and then I would be living by one. You don't want to live by one. You also want to have all your ducks in a row before you spend $250,000. Like one of the young ladies was saying, I've heard so many inconsistencies. How can we be ready at the level 3 of 100 levels to actually spend $250,000 for that survey? Or assessment. I also have to ask about this feasibility study. Why are we wanting to vote on it today? Why not after the survey of residents? There's a lot of people who couldn't be here today because it's in the middle of the workday, working folks who are paying the mortgages on those homes. What happens after $250,000 is paid out of our tax money, and then we fight access to that parcel? That parcel was set aside as a park. In my experience, 10 years across the country, sports complexes, Olympic-sized swimming pools are not a park. It is traffic, it is hotels, it is restaurants, it is maps. The people who make arrangements for children to come out and play, which I've been on that side as well, they are looking for access. They are not looking for hundreds of acres and buffalo. They are looking for hotels, food. They've got a game. They're there for an hour and a half. They've got a 3-hour break. They've got to get back to the hotel, rest their kid up, feed their kid, go back. You're talking double, triple traffic. You show me the roads that can manage that. And then when you say, oh, we will build them, we will pay for them. Not cool. So, in fear of being redundant anymore, that pretty much summarizes it. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your comments. Sir, please give us your name. Tell us where you're from.
Hello, my name is Stephen Butters, longtime Highlands Ranch resident. I moved in near MacArthur Ranch Boulevard. I mountain bike these trails 3 times a week. Very familiar with them, have been biking them for years. When we moved in, we were told they were going to be building these trails, and we were really looking forward to this. When I moved in, I used to be able to hear coyotes at night. I can no longer hear coyotes at night because we've built and built and built. But one of the reasons I moved to Highlands Ranch was part of the open space. I don't want to live in New York City. I don't want to live in Manhattan. I want to be able to see a tree. I want some open space in and around me. And my question is to you, because I know the feedback has been that how on earth did we get this far down the process? And we're looking at spending $250,000 for a study or anything like that. Have you guys been out to this area? Do you know where we're talking about? I mean, we can look at a map, but have you been there? Have you actually been there?
Sir, this is public comment. We will take your question as rhetorical. I get it, but
Right.
please do continue your
That's
comments.
my question. So if you can't answer that question, how in the hell are you empowered to make this decision if you don't even know what it is we're talking about, where it is we're talking about, the roads leading into this place, the woman that was just up here prior that made those comments? If you guys are talking about this feasibility study, then if you've been out there, that's one thing. But if you have not even been out there and have not seen this area and understanding how the network of trails is in and amongst and around this area, if you go in and put this, it's going to be a logistical nightmare. There's no amenities, no services, anything around there. One of the things that I noticed was when we recycle Christmas trees, they opened up some of this area and we had that damage with the tornado that occurred last summer. It turned into a dumping ground. People were bringing crap out left and right that wasn't even like a natural, wasn't fallen trees, wasn't brush, wasn't anything. So this will become further a dumping ground. Then the only thing that's going to be left is going to be the green belts with a concrete path. And yeah, maybe there's some birds, some trees, but this is an area that's pristine. elk come through there. I've seen elk. I've seen bear. I know mountain lions out there. I've seen their tracks. So do we want something that everybody can use, or do we want it with a bunch of kids that are playing tournaments and traveling? And I grew up playing Little League baseball, sports, all of that. I totally appreciate and can understand that we need that, but this environment, this place is not the place to do it. Build it elsewhere, but it's just not it's not going to serve the greater good putting it in this facility or this space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Very much appreciate your comments. Sir, if you'd like to come forward, please give us your name. Tell us where you're from.
Yeah, hi. My name is Tim Becker. That's Becker. I've been a resident of Douglas County for just about 15 years now, and of the Hearth and Highlands Ranch for a little over 10 of those years. I just want to I won't use my whole time, I promise. I know you guys got another meeting to get to. But I do want to make 2 quick points. First one is I would like to thank the Board of County Commissioners, as well as the representatives from the Slammers and the Raptors who are here today, spoke to us, for raising the issue of the need for more youth sports facilities. On June 27th, I attended the town hall right here in this room, and for the first time I learned of that issue. I was unaware, I don't have children, I was unaware that was even an issue. Now I think a lot of us, thanks to the efforts of all of you and the discussions that have been had, I think we're all aware that, yeah, there's a need there. So that's one point I wanted to make. The other is related to that. I appreciate that you are trying to solve a problem, right? This need was brought, you're trying to solve a problem. So in solving that problem, you went to a piece of land that the county already owns. This is sort of my second point, is it seems you already own the land, there's this need, therefore, yeah, it might be a good solution. But once you look into it more, I think you have to realize that just because the free land is not always free, right? There's a lot that comes with this piece of land, and you've heard all that, the concerns, the work that would have to be done to it to make it suitable, the environmental issues and so forth could end up costing a lot more to the county and the taxpayers than, frankly, buying a piece of land that's shovel ready. And what I heard today was that this piece of land isn't even considered ideal for those parties who really, really need the field. So wouldn't it be better to spend the money and do it right? And I think you'd find that you'd end up spending less money and deliver a better sports facility for those who really need it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very much appreciate your comments. Ma'am, come on forward. Give us your name and tell us where you're from. Folks, I'm going to have this be the last public speaker today, just because the board does have a cutoff at 4. We do need time to deliberate our next steps. So, ma'am, please give us your name. Tell us where you're from.
My name is Lisa. My last name is Kirwan, and I am one of the delegates to the Highlands Ranch Board representing the Sundance Townhomes in my case. I've lived in Highlands Ranch for over 30 years. I'm a Colorado native. Like many of my counterparts here, nature and wildlife is important. And a big part of the reason that I moved into Highlands Ranch was because of the areas that the developer agreed to or was a part in protecting. I take advantage of those opportunities myself. And I think being able to get out into the wildlife is really important. We see more and more and more, especially with children having, mental health issues, and to be able to take them out. I don't have kids, but for people to be able to take their kids out and to get into the wilderness and get off their phone for a minute, they're able to actually reflect and look at things and even be compassionate about protecting wildlife. I understand that, and let me be clear, this is not in my backyard. I don't live in the Hearth like some of these folks do, and you've heard from them and how it's going to affect them. I'm a Highlands Ranch, Douglas County resident. I live at the complete opposite end of Highlands Ranch. And I can tell you in discussion with the other delegates, that represent the communities in Highlands Ranch, they're not in favor of this. Quite the opposite. Most of them are living in Highlands Ranch because they enjoy the myriad of opportunities that it provides. And like others have said, my first question was, I don't see that there are hotels and restaurants and all those kinds of things that large groups of people are going to need, especially folks with kids. And if they are traveling from out of state, they're going to need places to stay. Do we put these facilities there and then expect those folks to travel to hotels, to travel to restaurants? I just don't see that happening. So then the next question is, do we add in those areas hotels and restaurants and things like that? If you look at next door, every single day you see somebody complaining about a coyote in their yard, or, oh my gosh, there's a bear in Highlands Ranch. Okay, remember, they were here first, okay? We encroached on their space. Let's not compound that by going into an area that already encompasses lots of wildlife, and where are we going to push them? They may end up in your neighborhood. If you live in Highlands Ranch, you need to respect that. You need to realize that you may see a coyote. I understand people with little dogs. I'm an animal lover myself. Put one of those things on with all the spikes, whatever it takes. Stay outside with your animals, but let's not push them even farther away. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Very much appreciate your comments. Let's go ahead and close public comment. Commissioners, we do have just a little over 10 minutes for any deliberation. So bringing back to the board, any questions, any comments?
We did hear a comment. I wrote down questions, and I don't know if staff here can answer the question. I'm going to ask one of them that we heard from the audience. Griggs cannot be paved. Do we know anything about if that is true?
I think I can safely speak for staff at the table. This is Terrence Quinn. We don't know that. I think we would have to check with engineering.
Okay, thank you. There were a lot of good questions raised. I'd like to thank you all for being here. I am a Colorado native. I've lived in Highlands Ranch for 25 years. I first came here in 1984 as a state trooper, and there was nothing south of County Line Road. You'd have to go down, people are shaking their heads, you've been here. You'd go down Colorado Boulevard and it would become Daniels Park Road. So I saw these rolling fields that are reminiscent of what the orange and the yellow look like. And that's what everything looked like south of County Line Road in 1984. And since in those 40 years, we have built everything from County Line south, from land that looked like what this looks like. When this land was first given to the county, as part of a statutory requirement in 1996, Monarch didn't exist. Monarch Road did not exist. It was just one big swath of road. In fact, I remember covering a fatal accident at the intersection of Lincoln and Quebec in 1989. There was a big post office there, and I remember thinking, there's a post office here, but there is nothing south of that post office. It looked like the land does on this yellow, on this map. Rolling fields, and it's all been built into the houses where we live on. There were a lot of questions about the feasibility study. I think what I have heard from staff when they talked about a feasibility study is to answer all the questions that you raised standing here at the podium. That's the purpose of a feasibility study. Are the eagles there a problem that will stop all of that? If that's so, then that will be documented and we will know that. What does this land look like? How can it be used? And it has never been talked about being a big sports complex. It was going to be a few fields. So there's more to this conversation. Our survey will be out. We believe it's August 22nd. So I encourage you to be watching for that survey, because I think I speak for the entire board that we are doing this survey, we're paying for it, because there's lots of different things that this money can pay for. This sales tax for parks and trails and open space and historic preservation. There are places where it's not just a check a box. You can type in your answer, because we will hear directly your words. And I think that will be very informative going forward. I'll just end with, I have been out on this property. Staff has taken me out. We've looked at the property. I also have seen staff pictures that were taken on December 23rd of 2023 with a herd of over 100 elk that are resting on Highlands Heritage Park on the soccer fields. So the elk have figured out how to get from the red and the blue and the yellow and go up through the drainage areas to Lincoln and Quebec. So they still are able to come up, and I see animals all the time in that drainage area behind my house. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Layden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to keep my comments brief because I know it's been a long afternoon and there's more to come. I'll just say this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end, and I want to thank all of the citizens, both in person and online, for just taking the time to participate with us and share your thoughts and feelings about this incredibly special piece of land. To go back to maybe a restaurant analogy, I kind of chuckled at the comment from the gentleman that was giving Chick-fil-A a hard time. I think we all do that on occasion. But, it's kind of like going to a restaurant and saying, one side wants cake and the other side wants ice cream. And I think one of the attorneys that spoke said it best, which is it's a both. With $330 million, we want to be great, phenomenal fiscal stewards of every dollar. But with that amount of money and a great process and a lot of wonderful citizen input, we can be a both and. We can find a way to preserve your open space and provide for youth and do all of the things that the ballot measure requires of your Board of County Commissioners. So I would just invite you to continue to stay with us, stay engaged, include your comments, and please take that survey. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, well, Mr. Becker, I think I lost where you went to, but yes, sir. Okay. Thank you so much for your understanding of, you did describe the situation. We have heard these needs for services here in the county that deal with youth sports, youth activities. And of course, yes, this is a piece of property that is in title of the county. So it doesn't surprise me that a member of the board would take action and attempt to come up with a solution. But as far as I'm concerned, I hearken back to the comments by so many of you that we can recognize the needs and the desires in the community, and yet we still have the obligation to find the ideal place to put it. And as for me, I'm not really sure this is the right one. Personally, I'm much more interested in hearing, let me put it this way. A lot of you might not know this. I served on the Castle Rock Council for 6.5 years. I worked with my predecessor, the late Commissioner Partridge, on a number of items. I've worked with Commissioner Thomas while I was a member of the Castle Rock Council. And when I was representing the people of Castle Rock, I'll tell you what, I had a prerogative that I wanted asserted. And, well, now that I'm a commissioner, I still feel that the folks who live in an area, well, they probably know best what we should do, regardless of whether it's owned by HRCA, HRMD, or Douglas County. And so my deference is always to those who live in the area and know the area best. So with that said, I'm not interested at all in moving forward on this request to fund a feasibility study. It just doesn't scratch the itch for me, guys. I think I'd rather see what HRCA puts forward as their plan first, and have an opportunity to can take that under consideration before we take a look at doing anything with this feasibility study. That's just my opinion. I'm only one member of this board. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I respect exactly what you said. And as I said from the beginning of this meeting, I never voted on or approved direction of staff on a feasibility study. So I'm pleased to make a motion to withdraw any further action by the county or its staff on a feasibility study associated with this project.
Okay, that is heard. Is there a second?
If I could just clarify what that means, does that mean you're no longer interested in the question on the survey about Wildcat Regional Park?
No, that's not what I said. I think I'm really interested in people taking the survey and us walking through a process before we spend $250,000 of the taxpayers' money. It seems premature to do that.
Okay, clarifying question was asked. There is a motion. Is there a second? Second. Okay, discussion.
I think that it is important that we not get ahead of the citizens in taking the survey, and we let the survey play out at the end of the month. And then when we hear from the citizens, then we'll have all the information to start making decisions.
Commissioner Layden, discussion.
I think that's the appropriate cadence. And that's just common sense. I think most people who are here with us today would say, yeah.
Yeah, what?
Let's actually hear from a scientific survey that takes an objective sample of our near 400,000 residents before we approve funding for a feasibility study.
And so are you saying, I'm not sure what you're saying, because on one hand you made a motion to stop the survey, to stop the study, and then you're saying you want to see what the survey says before you make a decision.
Well, right. For right now, there should be no further action by county staff on a feasibility study.
Until after the survey results are back.
No. I'm going to jump in on this one then. I don't know, Commissioner. I guess you probably didn't hear the same thing I heard Commissioner Layden say. I'm okay actually directing staff to abandon this feasibility study, but that doesn't mean abandoning our survey. It doesn't mean abandoning the survey question pertaining to the Wildcat Regional Park, because we do have an opportunity to move forward with the HRCA plan. And quite frankly, I'd like to hear what the people of the county have to say about doing anything with Wildcat Regional Park, because I think it could inform our actions when we consider the HRCA plan. So I don't know. I mean, I thought the motion was clear. I don't see a problem with us abandoning this feasibility study for this proposed plan while still keeping on with the actions and the work of the county.
And I think that's right, Mr. Chair, and I would just clarify, the survey will inform our next steps, and we will see which feasibility studies it makes sense to fund based upon that input.
So what I heard Commissioner Layden just say is that he will wait until he reads the survey results to decide what feasibility studies we will go forward with throughout the county. Is that right, Commissioner Layden?
That's correct. And so for the time being, my motion is to suspend further activity associated with the feasibility study for this particular project.
Until the survey results are in.
Right.
Hang on. I don't think that's implied at all. I don't think that was stated. I don't think that's implied, Commissioner. What are you doing? I mean, for goodness sakes, it's very simple, very easy. Do we deny the feasibility study or not? And now, I say we do. I say we have much more important work that we've heard from all these people today that we should be doing instead of pursuing this plan on this proposed idea that we're just, I mean, Hang on, folks. This is an actual discussion on the board. Please let us work here. This is what you pay us for. No, I think there's a lot of work that we can be doing, and this, quite frankly, this isn't it. There's better work. So I'm going to make a call that I don't believe there's any lack of clarity in Commissioner Layden's motion that I seconded, that no, if it is the will of the board through a vote to abandon this feasibility study, staff will be directed to take it, put it on a shelf, and continue with other work.
So can Commissioner Layden just clarify if that's permanently or until after the survey results are in? That's my question.
Yeah, and I get it. So the reality is I'm looking for process. I'm looking for information. I anticipate that the survey will reveal to us exactly what we heard today. But I don't have survey results in front of me, so I can't speak to something that we don't have. All I can speak to is not spending $250,000 on a feasibility study before we have survey results. That's my motion. And Mr. Chair, I will call the question.
All right, and the vote has been called. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those, go ahead, Commissioner, excuse me.
I will vote aye because he said it is until the survey results are in.
Oh, so you would like to take it up for consideration later?
I am answering the motion that Commissioner Layden just made.
All right. Well, that is a unanimous to abandon the feasibility study. I'll go ahead and break with tradition and make a motion to actually abandon this feasibility study, period. We have other things to be working on. That is my motion. I do ask for a second.
And I will second that motion, as is our tradition.
Excellent. There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
I would just like to ask Commissioner Layden, are you permanently suspending this, or are you waiting until after the survey results?
I am not doing anything until I get survey results back. I anticipate with about a 99% likelihood that I will absolutely vote to abandon this feasibility study. But again, I'm not going to act prematurely without the process. And right now, all we have today in front of us is either we direct staff to move forward with the $250,000 study or we don't. And we just voted against that. So I am fine where that is at, and I will look forward to hearing more feedback from our citizens.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion fails. Okay, well, this has been a very productive session, work session for the board. Thank you all for joining us today. We are just a little bit behind of schedule, so we'll go ahead and close it down now. Thank you, Troy, for your help. You may end the WebEx at this time. Thank you, everyone.